Hello and welcome to episode 44 of the Not Yet Adults podcast. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Collin Geffrey, joined by the one and only ×3, Eric Zayas.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, Eric?
It's been a struggle a little bit because of this crazy snowstorm that's hit Washington State.
Yeah, Snowmageddon, as people are affectionately referring to it as.
I think it's the apocalypse. It looks like the apocalypse because just 2 weeks ago, there was nothing. And then everything came at once. All the snow, and it's like the streets are the streets are quiet. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's interesting, and I mean, we'll get there. But obviously, you're on the west side of the state, which for people who maybe aren't from Washington or don't know much about it, is closer to the coast, and so there's a lot of rain, but not that much snow. And so, on the opposite side of that, over here, I'm on the east side of the state in Spokane. We get a lot of snow, and we get rain, but not nearly as much as the west side does. And so when Spokane gets a lot of snow, not that big a deal. The city is kind of equipped to handle it because it's something that they see a lot. But on the west side, when you get even a little bit of snow, it's a pretty big deal because it's not really something that the city deals with that frequently. And in this scenario, everywhere in the state has gotten a ton of snow. And so now it's it's kind of like all hands on deck of just trying to make sure that nothing too terrible happens. So what's it been like, Eric? I mean, I know we'll get to what Spokane is like in a little bit here, but honestly, that's more boring because I've been talking to you a little bit and Wiersma, who lives over in Tacoma, and a couple other people, and it sounds bad over there right now.
The thing is, I can't remember the last time I drove in snow before this snowstorm. From my experience with snow, I remember more snow when I was younger, when I was a kid, but as an adult, I have I don't think we got any snow last winter, and the winter before, I think maybe a little bit. But yeah, since there's not a lot of snow, or I think actually last winter we got snow for a day, and then I immediately was like, oh god, I can't drive in this. I put winter tires in my car, and the snow was gone, and I was driving on winter tires for far longer than I should have. It was the studded kind of winter tires, which you can actually get a fine for if it's not snowing and you're driving on it. I'm against getting studded tires now because I'm afraid as soon as I get them, the snow's gonna be gone. But it's gonna be here for a while. I heard reports that it could be here, it's gonna go away by Wednesday for a bit, and then it could be back. Another snowstorm is coming, or something. I don't know. It's I don't keep up with the weather as much as I should, but it's bad, and yeah, it's my car's is for residential areas, it's slipping and sliding, and it's freaking me out, and I've been trying to just stay indoors and stay out of it.
This may just be me, so I don't mean to project when I say this, but did you ever feel when you're in the car driving through snow as a kid that you're not worried? Because it's just oh, my parents will be able to handle it. We're not going to get stuck. It's going to be fine. But then when it's you driving in the snow in a car, it's oh my god, this is really bad. This is really bad. Something bad's going to happen. It's because you're immediately responsible for it.
You think if something bad happens, really bad, I don't know what I'd do. But as a kid, you're oh, my parents have all the answers. So, if something happens, but, and that's the kind of realization when you're growing up. And we've talked about this probably dozens of times, but when you become an adult, you realize oh, your parents, you're pretty much where your parents are. And when you think about it, our parents when we were kids, they probably didn't know what to do, or maybe they knew what to do, but they probably still were had that what do we do feeling if something happens, especially when you have kids, because then it's well, I'm responsible for this kid's life, and so if we are in turmoil, it's not a big deal, but if we're in turmoil with our kid, then it's oh god.
Well, and I'd wager they still don't. I mean, they're not this happens is exactly how I'm going to respond. I don't think you ever get to that point. You get closer to that point as you get older, and they're certainly much closer to that point than we are. But I don't think you ever have it all on lock, so to speak. So what's day-to-day life been like over there? Is it more or less business as usual, or is the whole city shut down? I mean, I work in news now. I've been seeing pictures of grocery stores from the west side where there's just nothing on the shelves, where it's just barren. So what? I mean, how has day-to-day life been since this freak storm hit?
Yeah, it's we all underestimated it, and so I was really unprepared. There was one night where someone said get some stuff, and I got some bottled water and some like some food, but like we already had food and like the water never shut off. So really, what I needed was um, like snow ice for the driveway, and like one of those like scraper brush combos. Like what I've been using to get the snow off my car is like an actual like sweeping brush that we use for like the garage and like cleaning up the kitchen. Because I never got like the right kind of brush, because by the time I thought of getting it, I went to like the Walmart, Fred Meyer, like, oh, we're out, we're completely out, like no chance. And like yeah, and snow ice is something we could have used. I didn't even think about it until like we're like basically hauled inside the house. The driveway is like coated with snow. You can't get out without slipping and sliding. Some of one of my roommates like just can't get out. He's had to like Uber. And it's crazy that there's still even Uber drivers, but they're getting paid extra with the influx of Uber drivers and the conditions. So good for them.
I think this was just a fluke, but someone at my work sent in an email around internally of they were trying to get a Lyft ride to work, and the price, I don't know how far away they live, but I mean they make this commute every day to work, and the price for their Lyft ride was $180. So it was like, obviously that's not for every ride, because I searched my Uber price and it was about the same as usual. But I think it was just an anomaly. Even so, the fact that it had sent prices that high ever because of the storm is pretty crazy. So yeah, I have the weather app open on my phone right now, and I'm looking at Tacoma. Tacoma says it's a cool 35 degrees out right now, which doesn't sound that bad. And it looks like the lowest high you'll have over the course of the next week is 37, which is also not bad. Where it does get bad is it looks like it's going to rain there all day today. And it looks like you're getting snow at least half of the next 10 days. So, yeah. Good luck with that, pal. I hope it works out.
Oh my god, my heart skipped a beat.
Because the rain makes it just terrible, because if it's cold enough and that freezes, then the roads get real bad.
The thing about the ice is like you can put chains in your car, but like I don't know. My fear is with that is as soon as I do that, it's not going to be as bad, and like you can get a big fine for having like, you know, like those kind of modifications on your tires that can like damage the road. But then again, like I've seen like a couple nights ago when I was walking with a few friends to the corner store in the snow, I saw a bus like driving by, and this road was clear, and like I think the bus was actually, it had like tire chains on it, and it was like blowing up sparks a little bit from the road, and I was like, wait, that bus has like chains, why can't I? And then my friend was like, well, they're city bus, they're owned by the government, they can do what they want pretty much. I'm like, whatever.
This is something I don't really know much about, but I would be shocked if during or just after one of the biggest snowstorms that the state has seen in recorded history, you would get fined for having chains or studs or something on your tires. Now, granted, don't leave them on till April, but I think it is such an understanding amongst everyone there, the traffic police included, that things are as bad as they are right now. I would be very surprised if they ticketed you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. I'm still just hesitant, but I'm just really trying to stay off the road as much as possible, especially since my new job, I work at a third-party company that sells Comcast inside Walmart's, and the office is pretty small, and they've basically, because of the snowstorms, kept people from going into Walmart. Like the last couple of days, they've just said, don't come into work. Like, don't worry about it. No one's coming to work. There's no point to it. So for the last couple of days, I've had the day off, and I'm coming in Wednesday, so tomorrow, after the day after recording this, which is a day we usually have off because we had previous days off, and Wednesday should be getting better by then. But yeah, I haven't had to drive much, so I've just been avoiding it, and we've been staying in, and I've been bonding with my roommates more so than I usually do, because I'm usually out at work, and my roommates who have been staying in because they don't have jobs or because they're staying in from work, we've all been hanging out and having a good time, and it's like a little unexpected staycation.
It is weird because in the moment when you have, tragedy is not the right word, but when you have like a giant event or some sort of catastrophe happening, in the moment it's stressful and weird, but looking back on it, it almost always leads to bonding or getting closer with the people you were in it with in some way or form.
It's kind of the same mentality as like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, I mean, I'm not enemies with my roommates, but like, we're already friends, and we're both like, it's something to it's a struggle to share, and I think that brings people closer together. I think that's a better way of saying it. You know, we're both going through the same thing, so we're getting closer because of it, and I think that's nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what kind of stuff have you guys been doing just to kind of pass the time now that you're snowed in for a week?
I've been playing. My friends got me hooked on PUBG Mobile, Player Unknown Battleground. For those that don't know, those that are living under a rock, I guess, Player Unknown Battlegrounds is the first game that did the battle royale genre.
Well, technically H1Z1 came before they did.
Yeah, but who's heard of that? That sounds like some sort of STI or something.
Probably.
Yeah. There's Player Unknown Battleground, which is for the PC, and this is the mobile version where you basically, I mean, I don't even know if I need to explain this, but I'm sure there's some people that don't know. You start out on a plane, you drop from that plane onto an island, and then you basically have to find like guns and stuff, and like, you know, there starts with 100 people on this island scattered, and then ends with one person.
It's Hunger Games pretty much.
Yeah, it's Hunger Games, and actually, it's what's funny is it's more like Battle Royale, which is a Japanese movie that a lot of people say like Hunger Games is kind of based off of or even ripped off of.
And it was a novel, I think, before it was a movie.
Everything's based off everything these days. Nothing under the sun's original. Like anything that's good, like any movie that's good or video game that's good, well, especially movies, you look into it and it's like based off a book. Like The Witcher is based off a book series and stuff like that. It's crazy. In the movie Battle Royale, it's like a high school class, but they have announcements every morning saying like don't be in this zone or this other zone or else you're dying. It's like a motivation to keep them moving around the island. And in PUBG, there's like these big red zones that appear randomly and where bombs are dropped off, and you have like a minute to like scatter and move to another spot. But anyways, whatever. I'm getting on a tangent. The point is, I'm playing a lot of that with my buddies in my house, and some of my buddies that live in other places but don't want to come over and drive because of the snow. We've been playing on the phone. Also, my roommate. Another thing my roommate has got me into is Seven Deadly Sins, which is this anime on Netflix. That's pretty. It's like a fantasy. It's kind of like Legend of Zelda if it was an anime show in a way. Dude, if you have Netflix, I'd check it out if you like anime. It's it's like a fantasy comedy with like Dragon Ball Z level powered people.
Okay. You've piqued my interest. I'll give it a look.
Another thing we've been doing that's really fun is and my roommate Malik, who is a very DIY kind of guy, very when he sets his mind to something, like some people will start something like a craft project, get bored and then stop. When he starts something, if it really like motivates him, he'll like see it out to the end. And so he started just in our, like, we have like this side yard kind of thing. It's not really backyard, it's the side of our house, and it got a bunch of snow on it. And there's like it's kind of like on an incline, and there's a part of it that's flat because there's like a deck, so like a sort of half deck there. And he just started making an igloo on it, and it's like halfway done. He used like those like plastic bin trash cans to compact and make it and use for like the building block bricks of snow, and it's about 3 or 4 of those high, and like if you how do I explain it, it's like 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and then like probably like 3 feet high, maybe more. And we're starting to work on the blocks that are coming in, which is the tricky part, because you're basically taking this huge block of snow, packing it onto a block of snow that's like basically upright, and like purposely packing on it at an angle that it like it looks physically like it shouldn't be held there based on the weight and the angle it's like leaning at. But if you pack enough snow in, it'll stay.
So this is what I've never understood, and this is going to flaunt my naivete a little bit. But how is it that igloos, if you're inside of them and have any sort of heat, don't just melt? Is it just because the ice is so thick?
The way my friend explained it was, when you have, okay, so the way like an igloo is structured is like when you get towards the, like there's this, it starts out as like these blocks on like the kind of go up as like a wall around you, and then they start falling in on each other. Like basically you tilt the blocks in and then build them and so that in such a way that if they were to fall, because they're falling in each other, they would just like compact more. Like snow's a really interesting construction material actually. Like you can just like any part that's gonna fall, if it falls onto more snow, it just kind of like compresses into that snow, becomes harder and more solid. So the way like igloos are built, they typically won't fall in because they'll just like it basically if a weight's pushing down on them from like bringing them down, or if they melt a little bit, they'll just kind of like interlock more at the top. And so if it's still cold out and like the snow starts to melt a little bit on the warm parts of the day, when it gets colder at night, that melted part will just freeze and become ice, and then it'll actually become stronger. Supposedly, we haven't really gotten to that part. We haven't really got to the warm part yet, but.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, yeah. Given the circumstances, obviously, it'd be nicer if you guys weren't snowed in and it was, having to weigh the pros and cons every time you need to get on the road. But the fact that it's kind of bringing you guys closer together as roommates, especially, in the first few months of you guys living together, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, dude, it's been an interesting couple of days, and actually I was dreading this snowstorm, and then it became like one of the funnest memories I've had so far here.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So yeah, I mean, as far as Spokane goes, again, like it's colder here, and I think we have more snow than you guys do, but it's not really as interesting because for you guys, it's like it's very much not like a state of emergency, but kind of like a state of emergency or very close, just because of how much extra infrastructure that doesn't usually get allocated to that sort of stuff has to go into effect to keep things running. And here it's just kind of like, okay, well, there's a lot of snow and it's kind of a pain, but we were under blizzard conditions this whole weekend, and my schedule just got switched at work. So instead of working Tuesday through Saturday, I'm on Monday through Friday now. So I work a normal work week. And I was seeing, because I work in news, and so I'm running the cameras, and I'll watch the weather broadcast as it's happening in studio. And the weather guy at my work was saying all week, like, hey, it's going to be bad this weekend. Hey, it's really going to be bad this weekend. Hey, this is going to be a big thing this weekend. And Friday, I left work and was like, okay, I don't have to go to work for 2 days. It's going to be great. I'm just going to stay inside. And that's when it went crazy, because we got, I think, 5 to 8 inches of snow this weekend, and it didn't go above 16 degrees all weekend. So very cold. And then it was like 25, 30 mile an hour winds.
Oh, jeez.
So it was like you go outside and it just rips through you. I mean, it was a blizzard. It was a small blizzard, basically. And so we're kind of in the aftermath of that now. The wind speeds aren't really a thing anymore, but it's still snowing. Like, it's snowing through the night and through the day. And so there's a lot of snow. The roads haven't been that bad, but it's just snow. It's not really that icy, and the temperature's warming up a bit, so it's not freezing anymore. It's not that far under freezing, but it's just a lot of snow, man.
Some might say too much snow.
Some might say I wouldn't dare, because that might anger the gods, and then they'll give us more. But yeah, it's quite a bit of snow, and we'll see the. I don't want to throw him under the bus because it's not his fault at all, and I love him. He's great. But the weather guy at my work, I think he feels like it's not that he feels personally responsible, but a lot of people think he's personally responsible.
Oh, they think because he reports on the weather that he like manifests it or something.
He's like, because I work in terms of like numbers, in terms of viewership and all that, I work at the biggest news station in Spokane. And so the fact that theoretically the most people are watching his weather broadcast over anybody else's, he's kind of like the face for weather in the city.
Oh, he's the PR guy for the snowstorm.
And so it's like picture any corporate scandal in the last 20 years. It's not that the PR person is necessarily responsible, but they're the person who has to go out and face the crowds addressing this terrible situation. That's kind of the position he's in. It's not like he can control the weather, obviously, but he's the one having to go on TV 5 times a day saying, here's how bad it is, and here's how it's going to get worse. And so obviously, like, everyone's always coming to him with a million questions, and he's just like really overworked right now because he's having to do all this overtime and stuff just to make it happen. So Eric, we've kind of talked about the snow in general and kind of how this storm, or rather, we've talked about the storm specifically and how this one's affecting us. I figure we can kind of round out the podcast just talking about maybe other snow stories we have from times in our life, whether it's storms or doing things in the snow, anything like that. You got any cool snow stories from the before 4 times?
God, I do remember a lot of my snowstorm stories. Jeez, that's a tongue twister. I don't remember a lot of the stories I have of snow experiences from my childhood. I do remember one where I was a really young kid, and I used to live in this cul-de-sac where like there were like I would play with like older kids, and sometimes they play rough. And for whatever reason, when it was snowing, some of the older kids decided to do like a water gun fight or something.
Why? Why did that happen in the snow?
Because kids.
That's so dumb.
Yeah. So I didn't have a water gun, but they had like a spare one, and they gave me a little small one. I was a real like young kid. I was probably like 10, maybe 12 around that time, and they were like older, like 16 or something. Shouldn't have been playing with that young kid, but they were like playing it like it was a like army game. And I was just running around like I got a spray gun. And I got sprayed real bad, and I was like done. And I went home, and I was like shivering cold. And I was like, oh my god, like
Eric, you played with water guns in the snow. What did you think was gonna happen?
I know. I was a dumb kid. We're all dumb kids. But my mom was probably thinking I was gonna get hypothermia or something. So she put me in like this warm bath. So like, you know, to keep me from like dying. And because my body was so cold and the water was so hot, when I went into the bath, my nerves like freaked out, and it was like it was one of the most painful things ever. Like imagine like you know how when you touch one of those like pens with where it's like a prank pen, and you touch the button and it like shocks you and your thumb vibrates a little bit, and you're like,
like if you're at a water park in the summer and like you tip one foot into the water stream and then you hold like a metal bar with your right hand, it's like the water's really cold and the bar's really hot and it feels like static. Your body just can't process the spectrum between the two things it's feeling.
Imagine that, but bumped up by a few levels of intensity and your whole body.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
I mean, not to criticize my mom, but like sometimes adults, you know, they don't have all the answers, and they're kind of just like figuring out, like, you know, like we are. Like sometimes as an adult you feel like a kid in adult clothes. I think that was a moment where my mom probably felt like that, now that I think of it. But like she's like thinking like this is something that's gonna help my kid, and then I go in there and then I freak out, and she goes out, she's like, I'm so sorry, and then she thinks about it. It's like, oh yeah, like, you know, temperature change can really, if a drastic temperature change is bad, you got to be gradual.
In your mom's defense, like, common sense and like rational thought only helps so much in certain situations. And when you went out and played with water guns in the snow in winter, like we're kind of past the point or beyond the point of return for common sense and rational thought at that point. So
I feel bad that that's like the one memory that's like popping out to me. But what about you? Do you have like maybe a more fun snow story?
So I have two real short ones. One is similar in the vein to what you just said. I was in high school and some friends and I were shooting a video. We were doing like a Rocky parody for like the training montage. And it was in December in Spokane. And so it was very, very cold. And we had to get out and shoot scenes. And like we had to do it that day. We had to shoot the whole thing in one day. And so my buddy had his like crappy $1,500 car or whatever he got off Craigslist that he was using to take us around everywhere. And we'd hop out, he would run the camera, and me and my other friend, we were on camera, we were acting, and we'd hop out and do like 2 takes really quick and then run back into the car and heat up, and then go back out and do another 2 takes real quick, then run back into the car, then heat up. And we did that for like 6 hours. And it was probably like 10 degrees outside. It was really cold, but it was very much that thing you were talking about. It's basically putting your body into shock, because it's like I'm in like 10 degrees and now I'm in 70 degrees or whatever. And that spectrum is not healthy. You're not supposed to go from one extreme to the other like that. But so that was one memory I have in the snow, is just being idiots and trying to shoot a stupid video out in it. And then the other one was sort of been in I'm going to say 2014 probably. And it was a girl that I was friends with before. We had either just started dating or soon would start dating. I don't remember which. But we went on a hike, and there was snow on the ground, but it was not snowing when we left on the hike. And by the time we're like, I'm gonna say an hour into this like forest, it wasn't like a mountain, it was just like a forest we were just going out into. The snow had like covered all our tracks, and like we had no idea where we were, and it just kept coming down, and we had no idea. And so we were like going the way that we thought was doubling back to get back to where we parked, and like we somehow had gone all the way. I still to this day could not tell you how we did this because I've gone back here and I have no idea. But we had like made it way down into the valley through like just this back wooded area. I have no idea how we got there, but we see the street sign that's basically like 3 or 4 miles east of where we think we need to be. And obviously, because we're dumb teenagers, neither of us had phones. We're the only 2 teenagers in the world that didn't have phones. And so we're just out there left to our devices. And eventually we are going back through this forest, just trying to find which way is up. And we see tracks that we think were ours. And so we followed our tracks in reverse. And eventually we made it back to our car. And by then it was nighttime. And so that was fun.
Holy crap. That sounds scary.
We made it out fine. And my parents were mad because I didn't let them know. Because I didn't have a phone. So it was like, hey, I'll be back when I am. And then night fell and it was snowing and they got worried. Yeah, so that was fun. And in hindsight, it actually is a fun memory. And we actually enjoyed the day for the most part. But there comes a certain point where you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna get home, and that's a scary thought. Because it's like, okay, what do I do? I don't know how to make a shelter. I don't know how to make a fire. Any of this stuff. But yeah, so that was one of my snow memories. And then just like dumb stuff as a kid of like snow getting canceled, so I got to stay home and play with Legos, or I got to play video games on a weekday, or whatever it was. But yeah, snow's interesting, man. It evokes certain emotions and feelings in us that no other weather really does. It kind of makes you want to bundle up and hang out with the people you care about.
For sure.
It's a special time. Obviously, all things in moderation. I think we'd all be happier if it wasn't hitting to quite the extent that it is right now. But yeah, I hope it works out. You guys especially, because everything I've heard makes it sound pretty crazy over there. So I hope it blows over sooner rather than later, and that everything works out. And obviously for us too, but I'm not that worried about over here. It just kind of comes and goes. So
Well, thanks, man. I'm glad you got out of that like near Blair Witch Project type of situation.
And I mean, like looking back now, it's a great memory. And even at the time, like again, it was like a girl that I liked, and we were just kind of going out and being adventurous. And so it was a fun day overall. It was just towards the end it got weird, because it was like, what if we don't make it back? What's gonna happen here? Alrighty. Well, Eric, we're at about 32 minutes. You want to take us home?
Yeah, let's get out of here and get warm again.
We have to podcast this out in the snow. It's the only place we could get reception. Interesting that you guys got electricity out of the igloo. That's pretty cool.
It's modern technology, man. Anyways, well, folks, let us know how you feel about the snow and whether you like it, how you keeping warm. Hope you're all staying safe. It's really important these days. Try not to drive if you can avoid it. And if you have to drive, just be careful. Drive slow. It's don't be stupid, please. But anyways, let us know how you're dealing with this. We'd love to hear it. And we want you to know that this has been another episode of the Not Yet Adults podcast. It comes to you every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and all kinds of places. We're also across all the social medias. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter at Not Yet Adults, and we have our own subreddit, r/Not Yet Adults, which you should check out if you have the time, because it's dead right now. And there should be activity on there, hopefully one day.
Freaking get on there, folks. What's your excuse? Come on, do it.
If you have some more time, we'd love you to support the podcast by heading on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes if you're on iOS and leaving us a quick rating and review. It only takes a few minutes of your time, and it helps us enormously. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see that there are people listening and engaging with us, and it really bumps up how many people can see our podcast, and we'd love that. We'll be back next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time talking about something else, and oh boy, oh howdy, how excited we are. Until next time, thank you for listening to Not Yet Adults. I love you. Mwah.
Bye.